Namaste, Jai Bharat. Perhaps no other theory in the entire thinking tradition of the world has attracted people of one particular age than the theory of Marx. At one particular age, you find many people getting attracted to the theories of Marx. And today, of course, or even those who are matured, they treat Marx as a romantic. They don't take Marx very seriously. But at one time, people took Marx very seriously. They all believed and they all thought that this is going to change the world. Of course, Marx himself says in his thesis on Feuerbach, I think it is 16th thesis or 14th thesis, I am not very clear. He says, philosophers hitherto had tried to interpret the world. Philosophers hitherto had tried to interpret the world. The point, however, is to change it. Now look, he says the world must be changed. It's a very emotionally ambitious expression. Now, when you look at the world around you, you find a lot of inconsistencies, inadequacies, which needs to be addressed, which needs to be changed. All those things is there. But then look at a person who is a PhD in philosophy. Marx is not an economist fundamentally, as many people wrongly think. He is a PhD in philosophy. He used to be a young Hegelian in his younger days, and his PhD thesis was on materialism of Epicurus. He was materialistically inclined in students' late days itself. Of course, his materialism is backed and pinned by his being a Jew in the context of Germany, where his people are very badly treated, persecuted of course, and very badly treated. Being a Jew, he had to take. Even Sigmund Freud suffered from it. If I am right, if what I recall is right, Freud's father was beaten up by some young boys just for the reason that he happened to be a Jew. And this incident has disturbed the young mind of Freud seriously. He was a medical doctor subsequently later. So let me come back to Marx. So the aversion to religion must have begun from there. Then just by virtue of his being a Jew, he is getting persecuted and troubled. Then he must have looked more into his philosophically oriented mind right from early days. Then he must have given a lot of thoughts to religion and must have found there is no serious difference between one and another. And then he must have thought about that world has to be changed from that kind of thing. The point, however, is to change it. Now, this appeals this appeals as very, very, very meaningful and impressive to any young mind who is very ambitious. You see, human beings in your younger days, you can be very, very ambitious. And you see, people after age, they automatically get detached until and otherwise they have something serious to do. They have nothing to do because of age. They are unable to do and they have nothing to do. It's a very serious situation. when people reach that age, they will have difficulties. But in younger days, a person, young boy or young man, let me call young man, is full of enthusiasm and ambition, and he wants to change the world. There used to be a youngster, younger to me, uh, in I don't want to say the university, but I was doing a PhD in one university. This youngster was after his graduation came there to do masters, and then after about a month or 2-3 months, I am seeing this man. Then he talks about all lofty things. He says the system must change, everything must change. We have to have a more meaningful approach to understanding society and governance of society, and all kinds of thoughts, positive thoughts. So the ambition of Marx, though people call it as very romantic fantasy, in other words, it's a kind of fantasy, so we can call it as fantastic thoughts, attracts people at very young age. And how to change the world in a Marx's later design. He began his thinking process as a young Hegelian, where of course he was influenced by the Hegelian dialectical method. Of course, for Hegel, the method of dialectics is a method. Hegel as a philosophy, people call him as idealist. Now, European philosophies, they have this categorization, rationalist philosophers, idealist philosophers, empiricist philosophers. Now, these are all names given by academicians. How realistic these names are is for you to think, or you can also simply follow what they say if you don't have anything else to add or subtract. So, Marx was initially impressed by Hegel's philosophy, and so he became a young Hegelian. Then Hegel has a philosophy of his philosophy. Of course, I told you people used to call it as idealism. It's about abstract. He says the abstract is the highest reality, and this abstract is homogeneous. It descends into human consciousness through differentiating itself, because initially absolute is undifferentiated. Descends into human consciousness, and then descending, you find the entire cosmos getting created. Now, to understand that absolute, there must be a reverse program, because you are at the lower level, bottom level. And Hegel designs the method of dialectics, which is thesis to opposite of anything which he calls as thesis is naturally bound to have something opposite, which he calls as antithesis, and then antithesis is opposite to the thesis, and since it is opposite to the thesis, they interact, and the result of interaction is a synthesis, which starts acting as another thesis, which will have its opposite, which is another antithesis. So the synthesis becomes a higher thesis, which will have a higher antithesis, which will have a higher synthesis, and it will go on not ad infinitum. It goes on till it reaches the highest synthesis, which is Hegel's absolute. Now, this is how one is supposed to expect it to understand the absolute provided by Hegel, which is originally undifferentiated. Now, Marx, what he has done, he knew dialectics, but then he is suddenly changed. His thoughts changed from being an idealist in that sense to somebody who is more practical. Somebody who is more practical. Practical is what you see around. And in European philosophy, such things come under the big bracket of materialism. Matter, now somebody would say, ideas are ultimately real, makes something idealism, and matter is ultimate reality, makes something materialism. All these definitions come to students, so don't take them very serious. They are there, but not final. Now I am speaking from a background of Bharat. We have nothing final. Everything is open-ended. So I would say that. Don't be very serious, because nothing is final. So then suddenly Marx comes across the materialism by Ludwig Feuerbach. The Feuerbachian materialism, most likely as I understand, what attracted Marx to the materialism of Feuerbach than his PhD thesis of Epicurean materialism appears to me as this. Speaking about God, Feuerbach makes a beautiful expression. That is, God is the self-esteem of man, which directly means that man imagines a perfect man, minusing all the human drawbacks to project a synthetic image of a perfect man, and which he calls God. Now this becomes very attractive to Marx, because where the God element is material basically. That's what Feuerbach also intends. Then what Marx does, he combines the materialism of Feuerbach and dialectical method of Hegel, and creates something called as dialectical materialism. And dialectical materialism has really nothing much to do with Hegelian dialectics. See, Hegelian dialectics is supposed to be climbing up, standing up. But dialectical materialism is not climbing up in the real sense. He is trying to understand the onward movement of society in time through his materialistic dialectics. This Maurice Comfort tries to explain it in a very simple and nice way. It's all right. Good book. So Marx talks about what must be the first thesis, early thesis in Marx. I will just try to speak it in a very, very simple and quick manner. What must be his first thesis? Primitive communism. That is the early tribal society. The tribal society calls it as primitive communism because the communist principles which Marx had reached subsequently in his life is found in a primitive communist society, where this private property ownership kind of things are not that seriously present. They are there, but they are not that seriously present. So then from the primitive communism, the society goes to feudalism. Primitive communism is rather undifferentiated. There, of course, is a class. Of course, he invents a class theory. Marx invents a class theory. Marxian class theory is simple. He imagines of two classes, the proletariat and bourgeoisie. He writes bourgeoisie, proletariats and bourgeoisie. Lenin also writes. Proletariat is, roughly speaking, I am trying to be very reductionistic. I am trying to just pick up points to my convenience, to make things present. Proletariat is a working class. Bourgeoisie is a owning class. In a very simple terms, they are much more than that. But for the time being, for my purpose, the two classes in society. He divides society into two classes of the proletarians, the working class, and the bourgeoisie, the owning class. And of course, there is a buffer class in between, petty bourgeoisie, who is neither proletariat nor bourgeoisie, actually proletariat, but dances with the tune of bourgeoisie to facilitate him for his own existential requirements. You find many people of that nature in our present time. So this next, in primitive communism, this class is not very clearly visible, but then they must be there. They are there. Then slowly it goes into what Marx calls as feudalistic society, and each social movements through dialectics is epochs to Marx, different epochs in history, and each epoch is now technically later he calls it as mode of production. different modes of production. So look at this. In feudalist society, of course, there is a clear demarcation, clear dichotomy. One is a feudal lord, then the serf or the peasant. The peasant or serf works for the lord, and the lord exploits the serf, and just barely gives him sufficient for him to subsist, not even really subsist. Fine. And the rest, other things, all the work of the peasant serf really goes to the bourgeoisie. I mean, the feudal lord. And here, the feudal lord is a bourgeoisie. He represents the bourgeois class, and the peasant, the serf, they represent the proletarian class. Then there is an interaction between the proletarian class and the bourgeois class, the feudal lord and the serf, and then the social structure changes into another mode of production, that is capitalism, where it becomes factory. Let me go fast. Where it becomes factory, and the proletariat become workers, and then this thing goes on. Then the factory owner, the bourgeois, he is really not bothered with the welfare of the worker. He wants work done, and his only objective is to give him minimum and get maximum. Now he brings up a lot of theories. Now, it's not very easy to speak because a lot of ingredients in Marxian theory, a lot of details built into Marxian theory. He speaks of alienation, and he speaks of surplus value. He speaks about means of production, relations of production, modes of production, all that. I'm just roughly sweeping across the Marxian thoughts. Then the thesis is proletariat and the bourgeoisie in capitalism. The antithesis is the union formed by the proletariats, and the synthesis is revolution. Contradiction and conflict. Now, class relations are very interesting in Marx. One class is necessarily antagonistic to another class. The relationship is one that of necessary antagonism, and the relationship therefore becomes necessarily one that of contradiction and conflict. Because of this contradiction and conflict only, dialectics functions. Then in capitalistic mode of production, in capitalism, the ultimate the synthesis is revolution. Now, at revolution is a crucial point. Things will change. After revolution, the society that is getting established is dictatorship of proletariats. Dictatorship of proletariats. Which is not a classless society. Marx otherwise is aspiring for a classless society to begin with, which shall lead you to a stateless society, and which should take you to a place of no objective laws existing. In his 1844 manuscript, he says, there is a possibility, there is a situation where there will be no objective laws controlling you, because he says there is something like the inner law of reason in each human being, and once the inner law of reason is the same as objective law, there is no contradiction between your inner law of reason and the objective law of the society in which you live, and therefore no policing is necessary, no state is necessary, no controlling is necessary. That's another thing. So, after revolution, the society that is getting established is a dictatorship. Whose dictatorship? Dictatorship of the proletariats. That's not a classless society. It's a one-class society. The society of the proletarians. Now, since it is one-class society, and there is no other class other than proletarian. Of course, Marx believes that the bourgeois element in the society would still be there, but then they will have to be swept away in time through the working of the proletariats, it's a one class society. Now there is a problem. In one class society, how can dialectics function? Therefore, if dialectical materialism must function, there should be contradiction and conflict. But in one class society, there won't be contradiction and conflict. So, how would dialectics function? Dialectics cannot function. So, Marx would envisage a situation after revolution, the onward progress of society in time shall be through not dialectics but through criticism and self-criticism. What exactly shall be criticism and self-criticism, you have to find out. And once through this hypothetical criticism and self-criticism, which appears to be a beautiful jargon, there could be a situation where one would reach into communism. That is what communism is. In dictatorship of proletariat, the society that is established is socialism. It should move into communism. Now, the fundamental difference between socialism and communism shall be, in communism, the economic principle of socialism shall be to all according to his work. It should go into communism where the principle should be to all according to his need. And there's a difference between to all according to his work and to all according to his need. And in communism, the state must be sufficiently equipped to look at the need of its citizens and provide as per the needs, not as per his work. Now, there is a whole lot of, this goes on like this. We can extend it, Marxian theory can be, but this creates a whole lot of problem. What kind of human beings are you talk about? What may be the concept of man in Marx? If you dig in and dig in and dig in and go into Marx, you will find that he is basing himself on a postulate which believes in the quote-unquote essential goodness of man. Marx would have to say that man is essentially good. It is here that you find Althusser-like thinkers criticizing Marx. He wrote a book, Althusser, for Marx. For Marx is the name of the book. So it's here that you find people like Althusser and many others, the so-called neo-communists, finding Marx a humanist Marx. Yes. They make especially Althusser, if I am not wrong, Althusser makes a distinction between a humanist Marx and a revolutionary Marx. Does it mean that these two are contradictory? Yes, to his mind it is contradictory. Maybe Althusser would say that humanist Marx cannot be a revolutionary Marx. Then, in Althusser creates something called as an epistemological break in Marx. That is, the Marx before he writes the book German Ideology, and the Marx who's after he writes the book German Ideology, that is from Economic and Philosophical Manuscripts of 1844. After that, before Marx, before German Ideology, after German Ideology. Now, he also creates another four Marxes he speaks about as per his writings. But fundamental epistemological break, which Althusser called, is with the book German Ideology. Now, it gets into the theory of Marx itself gets into difficulties. What is humanist Marx? What is revolutionary Marx? And are they not connected? One may be tempted to say that there is a revolutionary Marx because there is a humanist Marx. They are connected. One may be tempted. You suddenly think of Buddha. My professor, Dr. Harshnaran of Lucknow, used to say this. They both carried the same mind, he says. Buddha's concern for the humanity and also the cosmos. Of course, Buddha speaks about the cosmos. It's more human. concern about everything, man, not only man, to all animate, inanimate, everything. So Marx's concern for the mankind is what really makes him revolutionary. There could be an argument. I'm not subscribing to anything. I'm simply trying to present things to you for you to think. Like my another professor says, my job is to create problems in your mind, drill holes in your brain so that you would think. He was very right. He is very right. He's still there. He's still there. He is very right. So, this kind of things puts Marxian theory into soup difficulties, which I have real sympathies with Lenin, who believed in it. He was a great dialectician. He believed in it, but he worked like anything to make it a reality. He believed that these things could happen. Real great mind, Lenin. He believed that these things are possible, and he worked. He didn't sleep. He slept only for 4 hours in 24 hours. Great dialectician, master dialectician. Another master dialectician is Gramsci. I don't think many others have understood dialectics better than these two people. Marxian dialectics. But then later, convenience become criteria. There never had been a society in the history of Marxism which had gone near communism. There never had been a society. Yes, up to socialism people have gone, and that too partially. China today claims to be a communist country, but they are communist half. It is dictatorship, but not of the proletariats. It is dictatorship of the Communist Party people, and maybe the top fellows who would dictate terms and conditions. Others have no say. It is dictatorship. They would say it is a dictatorship of proletariats, but there is no proletariats visible. The so-called proletariats are still subaltern. Still subaltern. And it is dictatorship of somebody. You can roughly say the party people, and who the party people, who controls them, nobody knows. Nobody knows. So that is the kind of communism which you find in the world. Wherever you find the traces of elements of the leftover communism in smaller pockets, maybe local governments, etc. That nothing but pressure groups. I am borrowing the word expression, pressure groups from the American political scientist David Easton. Pressure groups. They are a very nasty kind of pressure group who, unlike David Easton's concept of pressure group, this is a group, LOB. Now, who would help you and take help in return, and they remain a closed circle. Pressure group also like that. They remain a closed circle, and anything is justified. Anything is justified. Any atrocities are justified. They support all their people for anything in every field, and this does create a kind of anarchy in the guise of Marxism. Marx must be turning in his grave, looking at the people who are practicing Marxism, so-called Marxism. So the discussion about Marx is real long one and interesting. It's very romantically appealing to people at one age. One of my professors used to say, if you're not a Marxist at the age of 16, 17, 18, then your brain is not working. And if you continue to be a Marxist after 25, 26, 27, then your brain is gone, collapsed. It is damaged. It's already damaged. His expression, he said in the class by way of making the atmosphere light, by way of joke, is very valid. On the first part, you must have all these noble qualities of sympathy, apathy, love, affection towards mankind, to the entire world, yes, you might turn into being, you might be influenced by Marx. But if you still continue, it means you have not understood Marxism as an impossible situation, which can never be practical. So, the whole world has already rejected it because it's not possible. Because there are a lot of reasons. There is no human element in it, in the sense that the theory doesn't understand the nature of human being. It doesn't understand the nature of nature. It doesn't understand the creativity within mankind. It doesn't understand the virulence in human being. A lot of things. You cannot predict. In science you can predict what will happen, but you cannot predict human behavior. Psychologists might disagree, but I would not agree with them. You cannot predict human behavior. You do not know. In a different situation that you have not envisaged so far, how would the human behavior may be? You don't know. That unknown and unknowable element is there. So long as that is, how can you take man for granted to make a theory for him? You catch a bird, put the bird in a cage of gold, what difference it makes to the bird? Makes no difference. Whether a cage is made of gold, copper, or common iron, or sticks which are strong enough, the cage is essentially a cage only. So, the people say in communism there is no freedom. That word I did not want to use it. But so long as you are not you in a situation, that situation is not desirable by you, not wanted by you. So to talk about Marx and Marxism, it can be very interesting. It can be discussed in on to many hours. We can talk because it's very funny, very interesting, and at times very attractive, at times very meaningful. So look at that. He says in the same book, I think, manuscripts of Marx says that a hungry man's freedom is a hole in the air. It's beautiful. Like, he's very poetic. Marx is very poetic in his expressions. A hungry man's freedom is a hole in the air. Now you start thinking, what is a hole in the air? You imagine what is it to say there's a hole in the air? Start thinking about it, and we'll meet again. With such interesting topics, maybe depending upon what comes to our mind, to discuss about interesting aspects of Marx. We still can talk about, all these things which I have just mentioned can be again talked in a different perspective at a different time. Till then, till we meet next time, Namaste, Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.